Texas school district apologizes for equating cops with Ku Klux Klan slave owners. But don't worry, they're now promising the school that in the future, they'll keep teaching that all white people suck, not just cops. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke program, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we start in Texas, where school officials are abjectly apologizing after hundreds of 8th grade students were given assignments comparing police officers to the KKK. I mean, wouldn't you be better off comparing Democrat politicians to the KKK? Seeming how the KKK was the party of the Democrats. Anyway, this is more of the kind of nonsensical, unfair, and just outrageous stuff that your kids. This is when the so-called 1619 curriculum is fully implemented in your kid's school a year from now. You're going to start seeing it in the fall. But when it's fully written in there, this is going to be what they're doing all the time. Every achiever in American history, every event in American history will be, whatever happens is going to be condemned because it's not diverse enough, or because white supremacy, or geez, when you had how long before the Boston Tea Party, before the colonial battles in the Revolutionary War are going to be compared to white supremacist Ku Klux Klan people. Well, the Ku Klux Klan was fighting for whites only, right? What were the colonial militias fighting for? White-only government, white-only civilization. It's coming, and your young kids are about to get a big dose of this over and above what they're already getting.
Well, they were arguing about the white sugar that they were being taxed on, too. So, that makes sense. Well, what's happening is out of Wiley, Texas, and that's where the school officials are actually having to apologize for this cartoon that the 8th grade students got on their assignment. And like you said, it compared police to the KKK. So take a look at it.
Yeah, take a look at that. So you've got a colonial, I just said it, right? A colonialist kneeling on the neck of a black slave, apparently a southern plantation man with his whip kneeling on an African American. Then you've got the Ku Klux Klan kneeling on the neck of an American. Then you've got I guess that's a Alabama trooper, right, in the 50s. You can tell by the outfit, white only, right? And now you've got a modern cop, right? And all throughout that, no one can breathe. Nothing has changed. That's the kind of stuff your 8th graders are watching.
Well, this is happening specifically at the Wiley Independent School District. And that photo that we just saw was actually put out to the world on Twitter by Joe Grimaldi, who's the national vice president for the Fraternal Order of Police. Mm-hmm. And because he's the vice president of the Fraternal Order of Police, it got around. And so then the school officials had to come back and say that the social studies teacher at the Cooper Junior High included the cartoon in a lesson for about 400 students, and it apparently was supposed to be intended to be about the Bill of Rights. How that's about the Bill of Rights and the right to protest, I'm not quite sure. But local news said that the students were allegedly instructed to recreate political cartoons depicting current events, including the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. And with Mr. Grimaldi putting that image actually out to the public, it got around, and so the school then had to immediately respond to this backlash. They actually decided to share a photo of the Wiley police officers on Twitter, kind of as like cover, and they apologized, and they said, "We're sorry for any hurt that may have been caused by a lesson that included political cartoons that reflected negatively on the LEOs. We value them, and we'll do better." And then they said thank you to everyone, all involved, for helping us move forward.
So if I understand this correctly, this was supposed to be a lesson on the Bill of Rights.
And the right to protest.
And the rights to protest, right?
Yes,
and
supposedly.
so that then became editorial. They have to draw their own editorial cartoons, not about the Bill of Rights, but about protesting, including George Floyd.
Yep.
So if some kid had drawn now that with the latest news about George Floyd, if some kid actually drew a cartoon, send that one up there, Mike. So on the first panel, you've got George Floyd buying fentanyl from his supplier. In the next one, you've got George Floyd taking huge amounts of fentanyl so that his lungs were 3 times full of fluid, heavier than they ought to have been. Then in the third panel, you have George Floyd taking different other medications and drugs to excess. And then in the fourth panel, the cops try to arrest George Floyd, who resists arrest. And in the fifth one, you see exactly the terrible situation of a cop with his knee. Right? Would you how do you think that would go over in Wiley, Texas school?
I think it's a natural progression you just described there. That's exactly what
pretty
it would
sure
be.
That cartoon would never be shown.
Well, according at least to the Wiley ISD, they said the lessons political cartoons were not part of their curriculum resources or documents, adding that the assignment has since been canceled. So they canceled it. There's good news at the end of this story. They canceled the assignment.
But let's step back for a second now and talk a little bit about what this means for your kids in the fall and your kids moving forward. I hope you understand, Mom and Dad, what they're doing. They're taking every aspect of traditional American history, and they're basically saying it's all the Ku Klux Klan. That every aspect of American history ultimately has a Klansman mentality. The KKK, despite the fact that we've talked about this many times on the show, it was a Democrat movement. Wouldn't it be nice, Katie, if we were like the progressives and every bad thing that conservatives did, we could just say, oh, that was then, this is now. Now the Democrats are the ones who really like black people, despite the fact that they were the ones who opposed civil rights. The Democrats were the ones who fought these changes. Republican congressmen and senators are the one who sort of forced through civil rights. The Democrats opposed it, particularly Southern Democrats. So all of this stuff, and of course we know that the Ku Klux Klan was primarily a Democrat organization to the effect that you had Senator William Byrd, for all those years in the Senate. We're talking right into the 90s before he died. You still have like 50 buildings named after federal and state buildings named after Robert KKK Byrd, who was a Democrat. You have Bill Clinton's mentor, in the Rhodes Scholarship mentor, right? Who himself was part of the Ku Klux Klan, or certainly a white supremacist. But these things, every time this comes up at the university where I teach, the kids tell me they've been told by their teachers, oh yeah, that's true. But now they flip. Now the Republicans are the Ku Klux Klan. Now the Republicans are the ones who are dragging blacks by nooses behind their pickup trucks, and it's the Democrats who are the ones fighting this. Wouldn't it be nice if you had a get out of jail, a get out of history free card like the Democrats have? Every nasty thing that Democrats did, and they're nasty things. Now they're erased because the Democrats now are actually the good guys, and somehow the Republicans are the ones who are doing those bad things without any evidence for that statement whatsoever.
And because we know how bad the cops are, of course, defund the police, get them off campus, get them out of the streets. We can't have police anywhere, except we kind of do want them, again, just for when we want them in specific areas, at least at Binghamton University, Binghamton, New York. That's where they were out of. Back in June, the president, Harvey Stenger, actually announced that the university was going to reallocate a portion of campus police department budget to other campus services, such as mental health. But now the students are saying, well, we kind of want resources restored so that we can feel safe at night when we're walking home from, I don't know, the kegger they had at the dorm, not from the library and doing work, but they want what they call the Safe Ride program. Pretty much every campus, I think, has one of these, where supposedly if you'd be coming out of the library late at night from studying, you can call the on-campus police and they would escort you, give you a ride home so you don't have to worry about walking home at night.
Let's be clear about this. This is the same kids who demanded the defunding of the police, the same cowardly administrators, university administrators, who whatever the left wants, they concede to. There's nothing too far left that the left can demand that some idiot university president or chancellor won't concede because, hey, you can't lose points by becoming more leftist on college campuses. Who's going to complain? The one professor in agriculture who actually voted for Donald Trump, right? The 5 college Republican kids, right, who are allowed to have who's going to complain, right? These kids bullied the university into defunding the local campus police, and then they have the gall, these kids, to turn around. Even though we demanded you cut funding to the cops, you owe us police protection, just not from the police. So here's what we want from you. The things that the police used to do, give us rides, or they're literally asking for this. Off-campus kids want to be driven home at night by somebody at the university who's not a police officer to be protected from all the violence you're unleashing by getting rid of the cops to begin with. This shows you when ignorance and entitlement cross, when the line of ignorance crosses the line of entitlement, you have today's progressivism, so utterly destructive and so utterly willfully destructive, and yet so arrogant about it that they should be shielded from what they've unleashed on the campus. Somehow, we who've done this deserve your special protection. And if you don't give it to us, we're going to be pretty pissed off at you, right? So you're going to get rid of the cops, get rid of any sign of actual law enforcement, because it's just harassment. And then the things that we would have expected police forces to do, you're going to do for us without it. Again, that's the graph where ignorance and arrogance meet. I've told this story many times. When I started teaching in the 1990s, the ignorance level of my kids was pretty high, but the arrogance level was really low. These were kids Indiana farm kids. I was at Purdue. Indiana farm kids, oftentimes first-generation college kids, they didn't know much. They were ignorant, but they were humble. They were here to learn, right? They wanted to get information. Now, fast forward to 2020, the ignorance level is even higher, and the arrogance level is off the charts. And so that's where you get these kind of entitled kids who think they can destroy everything and yet have new stuff, who think that they can destroy law and order and then be utterly protected. They can get rid of guns from everybody, but they'll still have people with guns protecting them.
What's interesting about this whole scenario, too, is the fact that it's kind of, if we're going to do a sign here, you have the kids who wanted to get rid of the police, but then they want it back now, mixed with the corona, and that's what the school is using as an excuse, saying that the transportation and parking services can't actually operate this fall because of the coronavirus, because their vehicles, it doesn't allow them to have any 6 feet apart, social distancing. So this would create a risk to the student drivers. The fact that this all came together is full circle. I find it hilarious.
Apropos of absolutely nothing, but you brought up the coronavirus. That's a name we don't use much anymore. Have you noticed there's not been a single Corona beer commercial on TV?
No,
they were all over the place. Remember all the day drinking and get your lime. Every time something happens, a Corona gets its lime.
Is that what happens?
Zip zero. Can you imagine being the marketers of Corona?
Those poor people.
Corona beer right now.
They're probably just drinking all the product.
I would imagine they would be.
Well, this petition that has been sent out, because we send out petitions, has been signed by over 500 signatures about getting the Safe Ride program back. And soon after the university actually announced that they would cut a portion of the funding, an Instagram account was started. I've noticed this. We like I've always say, they go to the petition first, and now it's which Instagram account can we put out there, because that's what we do.
Can we just stop with the petitions?
No, we can't, because it's what we do.
It's not that complicated. These college kids, they're celebrating the fact that at age 21, they finally learned how to write their names. And so you put anything in front of a college kid. Have we not seen this in Eduardo Neret's campus reform interviews? Yeah. Have we not seen this on college campuses across the country? They'll sign anything.
Yes, they will.
This is a petition to make sure that you're not allowed to wear pants on campus. Because pants reify the patriarchy. Well, I would have signed that. They'll sign bloody anything. A petition is an utterly meaningless way on which to predicate what major changes you're going to make in an institution like a university. Yet, we've got 400 brain-dead undergrads signing a petition to do away with oxygen in all the dorm rooms because oxygen ruins the environment, right? They'll sign anything, for God's sake.
We already knew it was going to be an awful experience, most likely going back to school this fall. But one would hope that on the second day of school, as you're sitting in your room watching the Zoom video of your teacher, you wouldn't have to see your teacher any more than needed. But that happened in San Jose, California, where a male teacher appeared topless during an online class for East Side Union High School District. Of course, he was suspended immediately, which is as he should be, but we'll get to more on that after we get all the details out. We only know about this because a parent actually named Elizabeth Alvia told the Mercury News that her daughter's a freshman at Silver Creek High School in San Jose. And on the second day of the year, her special education math teacher showed up topless, as you unfortunately had to see as well. The mom said that her daughter started feeling uncomfortable. She couldn't concentrate on the topic because all she was seeing was this old man on camera in her bedroom. The girl snapped a photo and then she sent it to her mom. And then mom said, "What the heck is going on?" and called the school. And then another mom actually said that her daughter explained it to her as he was shirtless the entire class. And she even said that he was holding the laptop, so it kind of fell and almost like exposed his whole chest. And that he kind of thought it was funny and like straightened it out. Delicious. Not at all. So what happened then is Superintendent Chris Funk, what a name.
Chris Funk on the
Chris
job.
Funk said that the person in the picture appeared to be a district employee. If you look in the bottom corner, you saw his name. It's Richard Cabral. You look him up on the school district. Yep, he's listed as a special ed teacher. And so Chris Funk said, however, he declined to release any information about the employee. And again, it says his name right there. The corner of the whole thing.
Do we need released information when we've got those
we got
glorious
that? Yeah.
man boobs?
Yeah, well, Funk then said, I will say that the behavior is unacceptable, unprofessional, and violates several district policies. This situation is under investigation. In situations like this, an employee is immediately placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation.
Yeah, so again, I mean, if I were Richard Cabral, my response would be, these young girls have discriminated against me because they don't like to see boobs on men. I am simply coming out to the world. I am demonstrating that men can have boobs, that men can lactate.
Oh, okay.
Right? We agree with that.
It's medical.
I mean, this is the new world order. When Richard Cabral needs to come out and say, hey, Cabra. I notice how the word bra is in that name. We need to recognize this is a teachable moment. These are special education kids I'm teaching math to. Who better to be sympathetic to some? Who else needs to be modeled? These are special ed kids. They need to have modeling of the kind of sensitivity. Aren't some of these universities, weren't we talking last week about universities in New York that were actually handing out to freshmen fake boob?
We've been talking about that for
a long
years.
time, right? So if you're a transgender on a university campus, you're a man who's transitioning to a woman. They'll actually give you a perma bra, right, that you can wear under all your clothing, so you can until the hormones kick in. We're providing breasts for the needy.
Oh, wow.
Do you think that would pass muster?
Oh my gosh, no. So the story gets worse because that happened on the second day of school, and then over that weekend, parents say that Cabral actually contacted the students via email, even though he was supposed to be immediately suspended. His email read in part, "It looks like I will not be teaching you for an indefinite period. I hope to be able to resume my teaching as soon as possible." And the mom of a 13-year-old girl who reported on it said that it doesn't state why he's leaving. It doesn't state, oh, I'm sorry for my actions. It didn't state anything. It's very vague. And again, even the mom said, because he's teaching students with special needs, some of them, the mom said, have more severe issues that they won't understand what is actually like really happening or why, first off, that he appeared like he did, and then all of a sudden is getting this email, and it could be very dangerous. But then, of course, Superintendent Funk had to come back, and he said, I will say that the behavior violates several district policies, right? In situations like this, an employee is immediately placed on administrative leave pending the outcome.
What policies
right?
are violated?
Okay, so yeah, we don't know why this teacher decided to go topless. They did report in the news story that it was 103 degrees in San Jose on the day in question, but and he was outside teaching.
So sweaty man boobs.
Sweat.
There you
yeah.
go. That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, it's the positive, I guess, out of this whole story, and the mom said it, is that her daughter was smart enough and brave enough to come forward and say this is not right, that she knew that this was not right.
So is it safe to say that Superintendent Funk nipped it in the bud? Is that what we could take away from this?
We are in for a doozy, my friends. The real education of today involves my favorite location, Hobbiton. Ever since filming wrapped up on the set of the Lord of the Rings trilogy in New Zealand, the sets for Hobbiton have become a tourist attraction. People from across the world have traveled to the land of the Kiwi to experience life in a hobbit hole. In fact, entrepreneurs are creating hobbit hole houses for people to rent and buy. And now, when I mysteriously vanish just one day in the near future, you may actually know exactly where I am.
That's exactly right. Just like Dwight Schrute vowed that one day he would walk the route to Mordor in New Zealand, she, Katie, will one day cuddle up in a hobbit hole with a cup of tea and a poster of John Adams.
Ooh.
That's all she needs to be happy. Take a look at some of these hobbit holes. I tell you, they're very intriguing little houses. These are actually from the set of the Lord of the Rings movies directed by Peter Jackson. I can't believe it's, almost like 12 years now?
Geez, how old you are now.
Since those movies came out.
Yeah, it's been a while.
And I think they got started back in 2000 and 2001, 2002.
Early.
So it's been a long time already that this has happened. So luckily, the Kiwis decided, rather than tear down the sets for Hobbiton, the town of the hobbits, they left them up there as tourist attractions. It's actually a brilliant idea. Take a look at that image right there. What I love about the hobbit holes is, they're almost like Tudor homes with all the beaming, right? They almost look like Tudor homes from the Renaissance, but then they have that added function. Love something about the round doors. What is it about the round doors that makes you feel like you're in an entirely different kind of space? Go ahead and show some more of those, Mike. You got a little video here. And you can sort of see they're all nestled deeply into the securely, snugly set back into those hills, right? You know no one's coming in your back door. Right? No one's coming in the back door to harass you. No one's climbing in the windows here. You have quite a great deal of security. They're very attractive. I got to tell you, those are the sets. In New Zealand, you can go and visit those. Just like you can walk the trek to Mordor, you can also visit Hobbiton and explore a little bit, but you can't stay there. There are a number of entrepreneurs in New Zealand and other places who, I think 12 different countries now have places where you can go and stay in hobbit holes, where they've built hobbit holes, very thoroughly done. The one lady that we saw from New Zealand who was advertising, come to New Zealand and visit the actual sets, but come and stay in your own little hobbit hole. They had completely put them together with themes. They were thematically put together. One was the hobbit hole of a carpenter. One would be the hobbit hole of a mill grinder. And so you could decide where you wanted to stay. The only drawback of staying in the actual accommodations of the hobbit holes is that none of them had functioning kitchens.
Wow.
Yeah, that'd be a bit of a stretch, right? That'd be tough.
Especially because you have to eat so much.
Well, again, 6 meals, right?
6 meals.
Right. That's you. So the whole Hobbit experience you could have. Here's what I'd like to do. Somebody needs to build Rivendell.
Ooh.
Tell me it would not be really cool to stay
with all the
in
water
Rivendell,
and everything,
with all the water, and apparently
calm.
there are alto elves constantly choiring in the background because every time you walk into Rivendell, right? But that would be some place to stay. What aspect of hobbit holes appeals most to you?
Probably that it's my size.
It's your size.
It literally is my size. I could walk into the door, not have to duck like Gandalf or hit my head, and everything, like I could reach to the top shelf, and it's not like way up there. I don't need to get a stool. I could actually reach things. It just seems comforting and homey and cozy.
Imagine Katie as an old woman shaving her hobbit hair from the top of her toe, between her toes. Just reading, and it's Nirvana.
It's dreams. All right, as always, you can follow us on Facebook and Parler. If you have a question for us, maybe about hobbits, visit freedomproject.com/askduke. We're going to wrap things up like we always do with our fun fact of the day, but because we're talking about hobbits, it's going to be 2 fun facts. Number 1, there was actually a 5th hobbit who wasn't really featured that much in the movies. His name was Fredegar Fatty Bolger, and he was a friend to the main hobbits who we know, Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin. And also, since we kind of mentioned it, hobbits eat 6 meals a day. Breakfast, second breakfast, 11sies, luncheon, afternoon tea, dinner, and supper.
Talk about that. Why has nobody come up with the hobbit diet? You could eat 6 meals a day.
I'm going to do that
and
then.
not be fat.
There we go. I'm doing it.
All right. And that's going to do it for us today. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. And until next time, stay hobbited, my friends.